Tonight we have the last of our interviews with the Invercargill mayoral candidates, and here's Hollie Buchanan.
Current Mayor and standing for Reelection in Invercargill, Tim Shadbolt. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, great to have you down here.
So tell us, why are you running for the mayoralty again?
Well, I think as a mayor you've got to have someone who's an experienced political warrior. You've got to be able to fight, and we've had some grand battles. Southland and Otago joined together when neurological services were going to be cut at the hospital in Dunedin, and we won that battle. We fought over access of meat to the US markets, and we picketed the American Embassy along with ACT Party, Federated Farmers and the three mayors of Southland, and we won that battle. And you're always looking at school closures, cuts in the health services. All provincial cities are facing these challenges, and so it's good if you've got the ability to fight on a political level, of course.
Tell us a bit about the leadership experience that you bring to the table.
Well, there are some people that say we need new blood and fresh people, but I reckon you can't beat experience at the end of the day, because it's a complex area, local government. 39,000 people are employed in our sector. Even though we're the smallest city in New Zealand, our budget's $100 million a year, and you've got to be up at the play, and especially in terms of infrastructure. We've seen the tragedy of what happened in the Hawke's Bay when the water was contaminated, and we are building here a state-of-the-art purification plant, and I've managed to push that through before the tragedy that happened in the Hawke's Bay. So it's always 70% of your money is always committed to infrastructure and more improved infrastructure.
What do you see as the top two issues currently facing Invercargill?
Well, I believe electricity is the key, because they're going to cut back on coal and carbon emissions and any fossil fuels, and so we're very much dependent on electric power for heating and washing and cooking, everything virtually in our homes. And we have to pay transmission costs for our electricity to be shipped up to the North Island. The South Island pay the entire cost of the Cook Strait cable, and we believe that is not fair. It's not fair on our main industry here, which is the Tiwai smelter, who are paying $30 million more than they should be, because they're so close. Right next door is the Manapuri power plant. Why should transmission costs be so high? And then it's a double whammy, because we have to pay the transport costs for diesel to get shipped down here. So we're paying twice. And I think the community gets upset about issues like that, and so they should.
What do you consider to be the core functions of the Invercargill City Council?
Well, it will always be, as I've said, infrastructure, but yet it's no point in having a wonderful city and no one living in it. So for us, it's population decline, and for 30 years we were the fastest declining city in New Zealand or Australia. So we had to do something drastic, and we brought in zero fees, and we went from 1,000 students to 5,000 students. We built a campus in Queenstown, a campus in Christchurch, and it really lifted the city, and it also lifted our profile. We were seen as a smart city from then on. Instead of being a sort of rural dying backwater, we suddenly were on the cutting edge of education, and of course we just needed to look over the fence to Otago to see how education had really impacted in Dunedin City and in the Otago region. And so I think we added to that vision of being an educational hub for the whole country, and in fact now the whole world.
How do you think that the current council is performing?
I think this is quite a good balance. We do need one or two younger people, and I think that will happen, because one of our elders are retiring and some have been considering it. So there'll probably be one or two changes on council. But it's good to have a mix. We don't have any problems that they have, say, in New Plymouth, where the Mayor tried to introduce a more ethnically balanced council. We, just through the ordinary electoral process, have always had 2 or 3 Ngāi Tahu representatives sitting at the table, and we haven't had to make any special allowance to achieve that. They've got there on their own rights. And so I think it's a good council.
If re-elected, is there anything that you would do differently?
Well, yes, there's always. I would not send any of my council staff to China to buy Christmas lights, you know. We always, and I would not have put up the project of a to B yacht race based on the Sydney to Hobart yacht race. But look, when it comes to events and tourism, you're always going to make 1 or 2 mistakes. You've got to balance that out with the Bert Munro Challenge, the Bluff Oyster Festival, the real successful things we've done. And I believe on balance, we've been a good average provincial city on the one hand, and been really quite innovative on the other hand. And the only way you cannot make the odd mistake is to do nothing. Just sit on your hands, keep the seat warm. And I'll never be like that.
What do you think is the most important function of the Mayor?
Well, as a Mayor, you're really a promoter for your region. So even when it's tough times, like the floods we had here in 1984, it's the Mayor that has to front up and give confidence to the people. But when you succeed and are successful, the Mayor has to be a good promoter. You have to be articulate, you have to be able to stand up in front of 1,000 people without fear and deliver in an English language that is easy for them to understand, often very complex issues. So you're a link between the council and the people that you represent. And I think it helps if you're well known. If you're a household name, it's like you've been in people's lounges. You're part of their life, you're part of their family, so they're likely to listen to you a bit more.
Do you have the skills to continue leading the council?
Well, we're about to find that out, and that's the wonderful thing about democracy. The people have an area that can let you know. And we also do mayor's polls down here when there's a controversial issue that has divided the council. We take out an advert in the local express and we see directly what the people think, beside, of course, the normal involvement we have through the annual plan and the long-term plan where people can make submissions.
Where do you think Invercargill's future lies?
Well, I think greater diversity, and we have achieved it with, we were sheep and beef when I came down here. I went to Mystery Creek for 21 years and kidnapped a few Waikato farmers, and we had the white gold rush. It was almost too many cows in a short time, 30,000 when I arrived here. Now we've got 750,000 and they poo in the rivers. But I mean, so do freedom campers. You've got to put these things in perspective. But now we're getting into sheep milk because the price of cow's milk dropped a bit. We were into venison in a big way. Of course, the aluminium is vital to us from the Tiwai smelter. So I think we're reaching quite a greater diversification of our local economy, and tourism now is the icing on the cake.
What do you love about Invercargill?
I like the integrity and honesty and passion, and I think humanitarianism, and it's often we're seen as a bit of a redneck city, but I'd say we were the only city in New Zealand that we hired a bus and filled it up with students from the SIT, and we went straight to Christchurch and helped with removing liquefaction from people's lawns and giving them fresh water. And I think people like to see a council is businesslike but has a conscience and is compassionate as well. And Invercargill squarely fits in, I believe, into that mode.
Why should Invercargill ratepayers and residents vote for you?
Well, I believe in experience, as I've said over and over again. I think you can't beat it. And I think if they want that continuity, the security, we spend $100 million a year of their money, and I think the feeling is better the devil you know. They want to feel that the person they trust with the future development of the city is someone they know or feel they know. And I think that's an important part of being a mayor. I've married 300 couples. I'm out there all the time mixing. And because I'm a recognisable figure, I suppose, they come up to me and talk to me quite openly about what their fears and hopes and dreams and what they'd like to see council doing and what complaints they have about the council as well. So I think being approachable and having the X factor, whatever that means, does help.
Mayoral candidate Tim Shadbolt, thanks very much for joining us.